don't think the link is working. Is that because you just didn't click live yet?
Yeah, it might be. It should be up now. It would have brought them to the page with no video, but now that I hit live, the video should be there.
All right.
Give it a couple minutes before we fire it up and get going, because we still have 0 viewers right now.
Islanders going on the power play.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, see, you maybe tweet this out. You didn't even click live, you dumbbell.
Well, that's because we weren't live. Stupid.
Well, we were technically. I mean, but now people are calling. It's not working. Is it me? It's not working.
Well, tell them it's probably them.
You're killing me.
Always blame the customer.
Exactly. The customer's always wrong.
They are
That's
always
the right
wrong.
way, right?
You know?
I'm going to tweet it again. Hold on.
Tweet it.
I just did.
Tweet it. Tweet it.
You're killing me.
Oh, relax your nerves.
You are so off your game, it's not even funny.
It's the first time we're doing this in how long?
Islanders,
It's training camp for everyone.
Islanders just scored.
Who scored?
Corey Conacher
Really?
Well,
on the power play.
Oh, baby.
Yep, out there with the first power play unit with Tavares on Oposo, and he buries it. Let's see, back to the point. Brennan with the point shot. Comes in low. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, either Brennan or... Looks like Brennan might have got it. I don't know if Conacher touched it. Let's see.
I like
Conacher
Brennan.
might have got a tip. It's either Brennan or... Hold on. Replay. Yep, Corey Conacher. On the power play. Deflection right in front.
I'm a
Conacher
big
literally-
fan. I'm a fan of both of them. I'm a fan of Brennan and Conacher.
Conacher literally stood right in between Boychuk and Seidenberg, and none of them touched him.
You know what? I might have to... I'm going to do a little line rearranging before we get started.
Line rearranging.
Don't mind if I do. Yes, Discover Card. I know my minimum payment is due in 2 days. Thank
Oh,
you.
I get that too. I get that too.
Thank you.
I get
Email.
that too. But
Oh, well, according to the Score app, they gave it to Brennan.
it was Conacher on the tip. I saw the slow motion replay. They'll change it. Conacher from Brennan and whoever got the point back to whoever got the puck back to Brennan. I didn't see that.
I don't think they're really going to change it. It's preseason. I don't
Doesn't
think
matter.
they care.
It doesn't matter. It's either Brennan or Conacher.
I just want to know why it's blacked out
Oh, look,
on
Haterade.
NHL
Look.
Network.
Here's a nice Haterade tweet. Isles tied at 1 on fortunate deflection off Conacher. There's a nice Haterade. No, Islanders tie at 1 on fortunate deflection off Conacher.
Who tweeted that?
Who's that?
I'm not gonna say.
Come on.
Nope.
Oh, you like my mom.
Nope.
This happened today, but I can't tell you.
Yeah, you can't do that, man.
I just did.
You're a bastard.
Staples says Brennan from Nielsen and Tavares on the goal.
Hmm.
It still looks like it went off Conacher, but
That'll be an after the game correction.
So does that mean it's going to be Conacher from Brennan and Tavares, or from Brennan and Nielsen?
well,
Brennan and Nielsen, right?
He put Brennan from Nielsen and Tavares, so Tavares got the secondary. So if it's Conacher,
probably
it's Conacher
Nielsen.
from Brennan and Nielsen. Yeah.
I'm going to hit record, because
Yeah,
that probably
okay,
would make sense.
Let's get
Just gonna guess that might make a little bit of sense to hit the record button when we're recording. All right, let's do this. It's been a while.
Yes.
I don't know if I remember how to do this, so let's try it. No goal call today. That will start. Goal calls will start the minute the season starts, and we can steal some goal calls from the games.
Not steal. We'll let people know what we're doing. Don't worry about it.
Okay, I'm gonna hang up on you now. All your New York Islanders news and expert Islanders analysis from the fourth line in Bridgeport to the first line in Long Island. This is the Dump and Chase podcast, and I could see Andy over there watching the game. I keep seeing his head turn because he's watching the game while we do this, because that man gets Nesson. Unfortunately for the rest of us, it's blacked out on NHL Network, so we can't watch it. I am Shane Blackburn, at Shane B NHL on the Twitters. And with me tonight is Andy Graziano. You can follow him at Tasman19. Michael Wilhoff, who you know where to follow him. Just follow him at Michael Wilhoff. So easy.
Enough.
Fine.
Go easy,
Unfortunately,
Keith.
we are Rich Diaz Rodriguez-less today. He had some family business and some, I believe it was furniture building
Yes,
he had to attend to.
like putting together Legos.
But you could follow him at RDNHL. We are the Dump and Chase podcast, and it has been a while since we've been doing this, so I'm really happy to be back.
Yes, welcome back, boys. It's a pleasure. As you can see, I am repping my Isles Insight tee, beautifully done by our graphics master, Reagan King, our Chicago correspondent. We call him Deep Dish. We call him Catfish. We've got a couple of other names for him that we can't say on air, but yeah, it's really great to be back. And by the way, I'm sorry for the selfless plug, but if campaign has, because of demand, reopened. So if you haven't gotten your shirt and you want one, you can head to teespring.com/IslesInsight and you can pick one up.
Thank God it reopened, because I didn't have the money to get one when it went up the first time.
I knew some of my staff did not get shirts, and you don't know how the ripping was going to come via EO. It was going to be bad.
No, but I'm getting it this time, so don't worry about it.
It was going to be bad.
I am getting it this time, and I cannot wait to order it and have it sent because it looks awesome. I was really mad when everyone was like, "Oh, I got my shirt, and I was like,
Yeah, and I am wearing my Islanders hat, but since all the cool kids wear it backwards, that's why I have it on.
Then you should definitely wear yours forward.
Because I like to act like I'm 20 years younger than I really am.
Young at heart.
Young at height too.
Young at height.
Very young at height, yes. Someone asked me today, it's funny, they're like, how do the shirts run? What size? I said, well, for a normal size man, you get an extra large. I got a large.
That's right. I'll be getting a large too, Andy. Don't worry. All right, so we have a lot to get to today, guys. Obviously, we want to talk about training camp. We want to look ahead a little bit to what we think could happen with the roster the first week of the season. All I know is I could not wait. October 10th. I know everyone's really pumped for the 11th, so they could all go to the home opener, but I'm just really excited for the 10th because I just want the season to start. I don't care if it's home, away, or what. I just really want the season to start.
It's coming fast.
And I cannot wait. So, what do we have? 2 or 3 more preseason games after tonight?
2 more after tonight.
And then right into the regular season. We have the Devils on Thursday and the Bruins on Friday.
Right. Friday's game will be Thursday's game is not televised. Friday's game will be on streaming on Islanders TV, via Islanders.com.
So very, very excited for that. I know you guys have a lot to say about camp, so let's just start there.
Yeah, I think training camp's been interesting. We've had the opportunity to be out there a couple of times and talk to the players. It's tough to get anything really out of them this time of year other than the standard, how was your summer and what you worked on and, we're excited to be back and stuff like that. Tavares obviously said he had no trouble with his knee. I asked him about his lateral movement. He said he felt great. He said he has felt great for 4 months. So that's good news. You can clearly see from the game that from the practices we saw and the game I attended at Barclays on Friday that, he's clearly not back in terms of timing and stuff like that, but that'll come. That's the reason why you've seen him play so many preseason games where ordinarily the bigger stars would usually be sitting out at this point, making sure they're healthy for next week. But, a lot of interesting stuff. There's a lot of talk going on about Ryan Strome, and it's the first camp we've seen Josh Bailey not being coddled. And I think the groupings yesterday really started to show that. It started to show, who Capuano and Cronin wanted to take a closer look at and who might be facing more of an uphill battle to make this 23-man roster come next week.
Yeah, I'm with you, Andy. I don't think you can take that much as far as how a guy looks. You hear it from them. They say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just getting back into it. My timing's not there, but it'll come." The only thing I really took from camp, besides talking to Tavares and making sure that he was okay, and he said he's 100%. He's just got to work on the timing. But the only thing I really took was the fact that they were working as hard as they were working on that first weekend. Spoke to Art Staple from Newsday, and he said, even he hadn't seen them being pushed that hard that soon into camp. And maybe that has something to do with Cronin being brought in as the assistant coach. Maybe he likes to work him a little bit harder. Maybe Jack knows perhaps he has a very short leash, as we've talked about before, and if he doesn't get his guys ready to hit the ground running game 1, it's going to be an uphill battle, and I think that played into it. But they were definitely working hard, and so far, you really can't tell. Obviously, tonight's game will be a big indication of how guys are doing. Conacher on the first line, we'll get to that. But yeah, I'm excited for the start of the season. I can't wait till these games matter. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's still 1-1, I believe. Yeah, it's still 1-1. Boston on the power play with 7:50 left. Boston started pretty much their whole first team this evening, with the exception of Tuukka Rask in goal. So, Islanders are hanging in there like they typically do in Boston. They typically play the Bruins pretty well, and tonight's an indication where they're being kind of outpossessed and outzone timed, if we want to. I know that Mikey loves when I say that, outzone timed. We talk advanced stats, but like I said, I think the biggest question mark right now has to be who makes that roster next week. And I think that today, the last couple of days actually, the conversation is centered around Ryan Strome. So let's attack that first. I don't look. Ryan Strome is 20 years old. Okay, he might turn into a great, fantastic National Hockey League player. I didn't think he was really, quote unquote, ready last year. Came in, Islanders had a winning record with him. I'm not sure how much that was directly. People like to attribute their record with Strome in the lineup directly to Strome being in the lineup. I'm not sure that that's really applicable in that scenario. He put up a modest 18 points in 37 games, but people saying that. And look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. They can have it and they can share it, and it'll be respected by me at least. But to say that he's done everything he needs to do at the AHL level, he's only played 47 AHL games. If that's doing everything you need to do at that level, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily a really accurate statement. And the reality is, people, rightfully so, have screamed for accountability. Having Ryan Strome come in and be forced to make the team is accountability. The best players are going to make the team, period. To me, Ryan Strome, from seeing him, has not had a strong camp. I'm not going to say that he's regressed, but he doesn't really look like he's really driving to make the team. And is that indicative on him coming in thinking he had a job sewn up? If that's the case, he might be in for a surprise.
I think that's a great point, Andy. Sorry, Shane, I'll be quick. There is accountability now. You can't just be a highly touted prospect and walk onto the team. There are players above him in the pecking order, and I don't know. I didn't talk to him. I didn't ask if he was pretty confident he'd make the team just starting out. But he's not John Tavares. He's not the draft pick that's going to come right in, skip over the AHL, and just play, no problem. He hasn't been that superstar that maybe we thought he would be. Being drafted as high as he was, and all the hype around him, and how he's done in his 47 games in the AHL. But he hasn't really stood out. He doesn't have that wow factor yet. I think he will get there. But Andy, that's a good point. I don't think they should just hand him a job based on his name.
Well, when we talk about it a little bit later about like who's going to stay and who's going to go as a whole, I have a couple more things I want to say about Strome. But right now, I haven't seen much of the camp, but I don't think that Strome is a shoo-in for this team this season. I think a lot of people want him to be and hoped he would come into training camp and preseason and be, for lack of a better word, a savior for this team. But I don't think he is going to just be a shoo-in onto this team. As a matter of fact, I don't think he's going to make it out of training camp. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I'm going to say, if looking at the roster and who Capuano has to pick from going into the season in a week and a half, less than that, then I think he's the first one. I think he's top of the list, Bridgeport, to be promoted if anything happens on the island. But I don't think he starts on Long Island, and the problem is he's not going to play wing. Brock Nelson could move to the wing if he had to. I think as much as they don't want to, I think Grabovski could move to the wing if they had to. But if you look at it, they have Tavares, Nielsen, Grabner, Nelson, Cizikas. Now, Cizikas, is Ryan Strome a better all-around hockey player than Casey Cizikas? Yeah, probably. But Casey Cizikas is probably going to be the fourth-line center. And that's not where you want your first-round pick, Ryan Strome, playing. Correct. So, instead of fighting for 4 center spots, now Strome is fighting for 3 center spots with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with 4 other quality centers. So 5 centers are fighting for 3 spots on this team.
Well, think about it this way too. People then will say, well, how can a guy like Matt Martin and this guy and that guy make the team over Strome? It's not that they're making the team over Strome. It's that they fill different roles. They fill different roles on this club that's needed. And then you say, well, some of them rightfully also say, well, we could potentially have 4 good lines that can score. That's also true. But I don't care if you have 4 lines that can score. That 4th line is never going to get more than the requisite 8 to 12 minutes per game, because they're never going to take minutes away from the Tavares-Okposo line and the Grabovski, let's say Grabovski and whoever else he plays with on the second line. They're never going to take quality minutes away from those guys to play a 4th line, even if a 4th line can score. It's just the way it is in the NHL. It's always going to be that requisite 8 to 12 minute range. And like Shane said, that's not really where you want a kid like Ryan Strome playing. I'd rather see him go back to Bridgeport for a full half a season, a full season, play 20, 22 minutes, keep that confidence level up, and then when things clear out a little more, if Garth can swing a trade or two, then he comes in. I mean, who knows? He might even be involved in trade discussions. We don't know that at this point because of the secretive nature of those talks, but I would think that if fans are looking for that number 4, that top 4 defenseman that they've been clamoring for so long, you're going to have to part with an asset to get that, and that asset's not going to be a Josh Bailey. It's not going to be who fans wanted to see, and that's Matt Donovan for whatever reason. I still think they're wrong on that, but that's my opinion.
Well, you're not going to like me much a little bit later then.
It's gonna be a guy like Ryan Strome that is going to have to, or an Anders Lee, who's going to have to be moved in a trade if the Islanders ever were to require a top 4 D-man, which I believe is almost unattainable in this league via trade anyway, because they're not just being given away.
Well, you know what I think hurt Strome's chances the most? And I think that was Franz Nielsen's season last year.
Possibly.
Mhm.
Franz doesn't have as good of a season as he did last year, and I think there's a much more serious talk going on right now about Strome being the 3rd-line center.
Yep.
But I think Franz's season last year just absolutely crushed any of that. There's no way you can justify Franz Nielsen not being a center on one of the top 3 lines.
How about this? You win a Stanley Cup with a Franz Nielsen type player before you win a Stanley Cup with a Ryan Strome type player.
I think you need both.
But if you had to pick, you're going to win one, in my opinion, with a 2-way Nielsen type player. Okay, Franz Nielsen on the 3rd line is gold. He is absolute gold because you could put him out on the 3rd line against other teams' 3rd lines. He's going to give you offense, obviously. We saw that last year. He's got that in him. And then you could put him out on the penalty kill and against the team's number 1 forwards. You could put him out there against the Crosby line in the playoffs. You can put him out there against the Giroux
And he'll
line.
shut them down.
And he'll shut them down. You don't win. You'll win a cup with a Nielsen before you will a Strome.
Well, let's temper our talks right here. We are a New York Islanders podcast. Let's hold Stanley Cup out of the conversation for a while.
I'm just saying.
But I do agree. But I think Franz played himself into a role this year.
Absolutely.
So I think
I don't think Strome has to make the team out of camp for his development to be considered a success. I think people want to see Strome because he's young, he's exciting, he's been highly touted, but I mean, people are very quick to forget Niederreiter, who wallowed away on the 4th line. And yes, I know, I'm sorry. He was playing with Marty Reisner and Pandolfo or whoever it was, but I'm not saying Strome's the same personality, but like you said, you don't want Strome, one of your best prospects, possibly, definitely at forward, possibly in the entire organization. You don't want him to play 8 to 12 minutes a night and maybe even be scratched, when there's times when Martin needs to step in or McDonald needs to step in. So I think for him to play in the AHL is a good thing because it keeps his confidence up and it lets him, it's better than a scrimmage, obviously. It's game action. He's not sitting in the press box in the Coliseum and waiting for a shot, maybe trying to do too much when he does get in. So I don't think, and the way I have my line set up, I don't have him making the team. I'm not a GM. I'm not saying I'm right, but I don't have him slotted in. So,
like I said,
I don't know.
I do have him as the number 1 in Bridgeport
Yes.
to come up. I'd rather him play, and if he's on the bubble, I'd rather him play a full season of 1st-line minutes in Bridgeport than be the healthy scratch with the Islanders.
I mean, they did this with Reinhardt last year. He was the
Yeah.
last cut. He had shown everything that we wanted to see, and by the end of camp, people were like, "All right, let's buy a Reinhardt jersey." And then they were like, "You know what? Back to juniors with you." And he had a great season.
And let's throw a little bit of more real talk out there. For Islander fans saying that this has everything to do with waivers, yeah, it probably does. Because you signed Corey Conacher, who could play. I know everyone's down on Corey Conacher. He shouldn't make the team over Ryan Strome. Blah blah blah. Corey Conacher could play. He's got guts, and he's got skill. Yeah, he's not the biggest guy, but he's not Theo Fleury in that sense. In terms of, he's not going to give you that kind of offense, but the kid can play, and they didn't sign him to a 1-year, $600,000 deal. Capuano wanted him last year before he went to Buffalo. And, so are waivers a consideration when you're talking about Strome and Anders Lee? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and lie to fans and say it's not. It's absolutely a consideration when you can send Strome up and down without that fear of losing him via waivers. So,
Yeah, I think the biggest fear there is people see Conacher as like another Brad Boyes or another Pierre-Marc Bouchard or another Peter Regan, a guy who's, kind of flamed out elsewhere, but he's still got some skills and, he can play first line maybe. I think he's a step above those guys. I don't think he's the long-term answer. Obviously, that's kind of what we envision Strome as. But, I mean, right now, the way the team is constructed, I would rather see Strome play top-line minutes in the AHL than try to shoehorn him in a lineup that maybe he doesn't fit in right now. There's going to be injuries. He's going to come up. He's going to play in the NHL. Maybe it doesn't have to be day one, but he'll be there.
Okposo scored 2-1 Islanders.
Nice.
That's what I was celebrating about when Mike started talking.
Oh, I thought I was making a really good point.
The one thing I will say is I think Nelson moving to wing makes more sense because I don't see Nelson as the future number 2 center. I see Strome as the future number 2 center, which is why I think they're hesitant to move him to the wing. Which is why I think you won't see him come into the lineup right away because they're not trying to just get Strome into the lineup. I think they do have a plan for him down the line.
3-1 Islanders. Corey Conacher.
Well, speaking of the devil.
Jeez.
I almost disagree with you. Let me make sure I'm getting this right, Shane. I don't disagree with you that Conacher scored. You see Strome playing number 2 center over Nelson. Is that right?
And I see Nelson being a permanent winger down the line.
Okay, I kind of go the other way. I like Nelson's skill set. To me, he's a bigger, stronger Franz Nielsen. He's not a third line center. I think he's a second line center. I think Strome is a little light at the moment. He'll put on some weight, obviously, but I don't know. I go back and forth on this a lot. I like Nelson as a second-line center. Obviously, he's not going to be there this year because Grabowski, I think, fits in that role a little bit better. But Nelson, I think, has the prototypical two-way center, I guess, body type, skill set. He appeals to me a little more as a center than he does a wing. So I guess I'll disagree with you there. I think Nelson maybe is the number 2 center, and Strome, who knows where he slots in. I think he'll be good wherever he goes.
All right, so while we're talking about it and we're starting to compare people, I had Andy, Rich, and Mike all send me rankings of forwards, defensemen, and goalies, although there really wasn't much with the goalies. It was really just forward and defensemen. We ranked the forwards. We did 15 forwards, 1 to 15, and we did 10 defensemen, 1 to 10, which, if that doesn't show you what the depth that defense looks like on this team, because we were able to rank 10 defensemen to 15 forwards where you roster, or not even roster, you start 12 forwards a game and you only start 6 defensemen. The fact that we were able to find 10 defensemen to rank, I think speaks volumes of the future for the blue line. But let's start with the forwards. And what I did was I had the 3 of them send me their rankings. Then I had my own rankings. And I went in and I averaged every player where we had them in the rankings, and then I ranked them based on the average.
I didn't understand a word you just said. I was terrible at math.
There's a lot of math in there. There's a lot of math.
And I'm really bad at math.
Was that?
This will be good.
Was that trigonometry thing that
we're going to have Tavares. His average rank is going to be 36.
No, let me tell you something. The fact that I sat down. The fact that I sat down with a calculator and figured this out is impressive beyond belief to me, because I hated math. But I sat down, I did the averages, and then I ranked them based on the average. Most of us were pretty close on most of the guys. There wasn't too much variation. Some of them were way different. I think the defenseman is where we really differed more. But starting with the forwards, average rank for the four of us, obviously number one, that's easy, is John Tavares. All four of us had him in the number one spot. That wasn't even a question. Number two, average ranking-wise, was Okposo. I think most of us had him there, too. I think one person had him out of the number two spot and in the number three spot.
Yep.
Then three, we had Grabowski. Four was Franzi. Five was Brock Nelson.
Okay, go ahead.
6 was Grabner. 7 was Kuhlman. 8 was Anders Lee. 9 was Casey Cizikas. 10 was Cal Clutterbuck. 11 was Josh Bailey. 12 was Ryan Strome. 13 was Corey Conacher. 14 was Matt Martin. And 15 was Colin McDonald.
So Bailey averaged above. I know I did. Bailey averaged above Strome.
Yes.
Wow.
Bailey averaged just above Strome.
That's gonna anger a lot of people.
That is gonna anger a lot of people. As I was filling out the final average, I was like, I'm a little nervous to talk about this.
Yeah, let's move on to defense, huh?
Yeah, that was fun. Next.
That's called a segue. Segue.
We're gonna move on. So I think actually the surprise to me, and let me make sure I type this down correctly. The surprise to me is Anders Lee at number 8. Number 8. Think about that. All the forwards, all the names. Number 8 for Anders Lee. Bailey, a little bit of a surprise. I had him at 8, so you guys can yell at me if you want. But I think I'm pretty much in agreement with those rankings, minus Lee and then Bailey.
I don't think I'd put Lee behind Kuhlman either. I'm not sold on Kuhlman just yet. I mean,
well, they're 7 and 8. They're 7 and 8. They're right.
I think in our minds they're together. So if one is 7, one is going to be.
The funniest thing that I saw at camp, a little funny story, was it really is true. I mean, Nikolai Kuhlman literally follows Grabowski around everywhere. I'm not even kidding when I say that. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. It could be a Cappy chalkboard talk. It could be in the locker room. It was in the hallway on the way out to the car. We saw it in the video over the summer, the ALS video. And he literally follows him everywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable. That's no joke. So hopefully they continue that chemistry on the ice, but I'm not 100% sold on him just yet.
Well, for Bailey, we had him at 11th with the overall rank. Now, if you look at the individual rankings, I had him at 11.
No, don't give the individual rankings.
Okay.
Bad idea.
All right, but Bailey, I guess that means Andy doesn't want everyone to know his rankings. Maybe we should blast those out.
I don't remember what I had, to be honest with you. I don't remember.
That's all right. I'll dig up the email.
I have it open already.
Did I have him ahead of Strome, or didn't I?
You had him ahead of Strome.
All right. Well, I still believe in Josh. I will for another year, and then.
I had him just behind Strome.
I'm done with you.
We all had Strome pretty low on the rankings list, and I think that's not because the way we did this wasn't a future prospect ranking-wise. This was a right now, current moment where they're going to fit into the lineup.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
If this was looking down the line, a kind of player they could develop into, Strome probably would have been number 1 through 4.
And look, I'm going to be honest about this too. Josh Bailey has looked not good in camp either. I'm trying not to make.
I don't think that's much of a surprise to anybody, though.
As Mike said, I'm trying not to make too much of practices in preseason games, but it is a time when you have an opportunity to prove to the coaching staff some things, and to me, he hasn't looked like he's done anything.
Yeah, that's almost a reputation precedes you kind of thing. You know, we were down on him at the end of last year. You know, he turned it on a little bit, but it was too late. They were already out of it. So unless he showed up in camp this year and absolutely blew everybody away, you know, everyone was going to walk away and say, you know what, Bailey didn't really show me much today. So I'll reserve judgment. I'll give him 20 games like you're supposed to for everybody else. You know, we'll get to the quarter pole of the season and see how he's doing. And he knows it. And just like Cappy knows he has a short leash, Bailey might be the first healthy scratch if he doesn't show up in the first 20 games. So I'm sure he knows that as well as us.
He was in that second grouping the other day, yesterday, and we did find out that the reason that Grabner they said Grabner went to go see the doctor, it was because of a upper body injury. He's listed as day-to-day along with Calvin DeHaan, Wisnowski with the back spasms, Karkner with an upper body injury, Zolnicek with an upper body injury. So biggest concerns there are obviously Wisnowski with the spasms, which aren't serious only if they become recurrent. Do they become a problem? We don't know what DeHaan's mystery UBI is. I'm hoping it's not a shoulder again.
That scares the crap out of me.
And obviously Karkner with the UBI to me really doesn't matter because I don't have him making the team out of camp anyway. I have him getting the Joe Finley treatment. And Grabner with the UBI. And, you kind of saw it on Friday at Barclays with Grabner. He just didn't look – I remember saying to Tony Stabile, who I was sitting next to up in the box, and I was like, Grabner just doesn't look right to me. Does he look right to you? And he's like, I don't know. He looks okay. I said, he just didn't look like he was – he definitely looked like something was affecting him. So we found out that was an upper body injury. So.
All right. Let's move on to defense, where the main concern of injuries lie right now. But number one, unanimously, we had Hamonic. Number two was Calvin DeHaan. Number three was Wisnowski. 4 was Hickey. 5 was Reinhardt. Now, this is where it gets interesting after 5. 5 was Reinhardt. Our average ranking for number 6 was Matt Donovan.
See?
7 was T.J. Brennan.
Okay.
8 was Brian Strait. 9 was Churchman.
Yep.
And 10 was Pulak. So I have 2 people ahead of my 6th defenseman, who's not in the top 6 of our rankings. There are 2 people ahead of him who I think is going to be the 6th defenseman out of training camp. But I think we were all pretty close on the defensive rankings. And then goalies, obviously Halak was the unanimous number 1.
Johnson. Yeah.
Johnson was the unanimous number 2. And then number 3 is where we differed. 2 of us went for Leggio, and 2 of us went for Poulin. So I just wrote them both down in the 3 spot with a slash in between their names because I don't think they're going to play anyway.
In terms of the defense, Griffin Reinhardt, let's get this out of the way immediately. I'm going to say this with a big yet at the end of it because I just don't know. I'm not a scout. Griffin Reinhardt does not have, at this moment, any offensive instincts whatsoever. Like, none. Like, I'm talking, he's going to be that safe shutdown, try to be that safe shutdown defensive defenseman. Really doesn't have much offensive instincts. On the flip side, Ryan Pulak has a ton of them right now, but doesn't have any defensive instincts. I mean, this guy shot a puck Friday night off the boards in the second period off his back foot that just resonated around Barkley. I couldn't believe how hard he shot this puck off his back foot. It was unbelievable. But defensively, he's a mess right now.
Well, I would rather have that shutdown defenseman because that's what we're lacking than have another Mark Streit.
Agreed. Brian Strait has got to be out of the conversation for me. Looked awful in Jersey the other night. And you know what? Matt Donovan told me at camp that he came in a lot looser, a lot more relaxed. He wasn't gripping the stick so tight. He told me directly that what happened to him last year definitely affected his game, the getting sent up and down. It definitely damaged his confidence, the scratches. He has looked pretty good in camp to me. I've watched him and focused on him extensively. I've spoken to him 3 times now about how he feels camp is going, and I do see a little bit different of an attitude with him. He definitely does seem more relaxed, and I still to this day think he's the offensive gambler type D-man that, when paired with a safe defensive D-man, can help this club.
That I agree with 100%. I think in my pairs, I have DeHaan and Hamonic, Hickey, Wisnowski, and then I think Donovan and Reinhardt. Brennan's my 7th.
Yep.
And, depending on how the games shake out, I could switch out Brennan for Donovan, I guess. I like Reinhardt a lot. I think of that group, he is obviously the biggest, most shutdown type of anybody. I think everybody else, and Islanders kind of draft this way, they kind of scout this way. They err towards puck-moving defensemen, guys a little bit on the smaller side as far as who's in the NHL right now, so the defense is a little thin. They can move, they can skate. The big guys are down in the AHL, like Mayfield.
Yeah.
Polka, that whole group, Churchman even. But I think Reinhardt would lend a little bit of toughness, for lack of a better term, to that lineup. I think he would fit in nicely on the third pair. He doesn't have to be relied upon to, shut down Sidney Crosby, but for him to be out there, I think would be big. He's done everything he can in juniors.
Right.
Obviously, he hasn't had the strongest camp, but we'll see how it shakes out. I'd like to see him on the third pair.
I agree.
All right, so let's do that then. Let's move over to completely off the on a whim line combinations of who we think is going to make the team out of camp. Obviously, we have no idea. We don't know who's making the team out of camp. We don't know what the coaches are thinking line-wise. All we have are the groupings that we saw, which could mean absolutely nothing or could mean a lot. So, just based on our own brain functioning power and the little bit we do know, let's start with line number one. Mine's Nelson Tavares Okposo.
Yes.
George, hold on. Just before we get into this, George Pace, I see your tweets, and I don't know what to tell you, dude.
Wait, I didn't see them yet. Hold on. Who's he tweeting at?
He's tweeting at me.
Everybody.
Really, really against Josh Bailey, like really.
Wait, he doesn't like Josh Bailey? That's weird. He doesn't like Gar Snow either.
George, I hear you, and I don't necessarily disagree with you on Bailey per se. Let's not sit here and make it a disagreement, because I did point out that Josh Bailey has had a horrible camp. He hasn't proved that he's ready to take that next step, but the fact of the matter remains that the Islanders are not giving up on him just yet, and that's a fact that we're going to have to deal with. He's got a decent contract. I think it's a movable contract, but the reality is, as much as fans might be down on him, as much as I might say he hasn't had a good camp, the Islanders are just not giving up on him just yet. So that's just the reality of the situation. So in terms of, again, as Shane said, it wasn't a future ranking. It was a ranking right now. And based on what we know from the Islanders coaching staff and their feelings toward Bailey, that's why he was ranked where he was.
Okay.
Let's move on.
So line number one, Nelson Tavares Okposo. What do you guys have?
I didn't do this exercise. Mikey, you go ahead. I'll think of
it. I agree 100%. I went back and forth a couple times. The coaching staff has Conacher up there tonight. I went with that for a little bit, and then the more I thought about it, Nelson's already played with Tavares and Okposo, and he's looked good. He looked good last season in limited time, so I think he can fill in there nicely. Obviously, he's, to me, better as a center, but I don't think he has a spot at center right now. He can't play the second line if Grabowski's there. Can't play the third line, and I don't think you want him on the fourth line. I think Zizekas is better suited to that role. So I think it's Nelson, Tavares, Okposo, line one.
I like Brock's size on the wing. I like his size at center. I like his size everywhere. He can play pretty much anywhere with that kind of size, and he's definitely come into camp with a new attitude. He seems like he matured 10 years over the summer. Very confident, very calm, cool, and collected. I'm just not sure what Brock's offensive upside is.
I think, real quick, I remember one goal from him in Buffalo. I think it was the last game of the season where he kind of walked in, toe drag, laser shot, upper corner, and I was like, wow, he's got it. I didn't think he had that offensive upside either, but I think he could get there, especially with Tavares passing to him.
Yeah, that's the only question I have there is would his what seems to be questionable offensive production hinder that line in terms of Tavares and Okposo? Would they be better off with a more skilled offensive player on that line? Because Kyle's not a bad defensive player. It's not like Kyle's an Alex Ovechkin.
Boo.
Tavares doesn't really like to play
defense
that much. Let's call a spade. But so that would be my only question. I think it's the obvious choice to go with that line as your top unit, but I wouldn't give it much time before I started noticing, really looking carefully if Nelson is bringing that line down in terms of creativity.
All right. Well, Rich also has Okposo, Tavares, and Nelson. He emailed me his lines when he knew he wasn't going to be able to make it. So all four of us have that top line. I did play around with Conacher in that wing spot, Mike, same as you did. But I think Nelson is just going to be the guy to put in there, at least to start this season. Line 2, I think this is where we're going to start to differ. Line 2, I have Grabowski in the middle between, for now, for now, Grabner and Kuhlman.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that 100%.
It's Grabowski, Grabner, and Kuhlman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate.
I think Grabo and Kuhlman have to go together. They signed together. They said they would only go there. They follow each other around, you know. And I think Grabner is the speedy guy on the wing that they need, you know, because Grabowski and Kuhlman tend to set each other up pretty well. But Grabner, I'm already messing up their names. Grabner would add that element that could kind of stretch the defense a little bit and hopefully get back, you know, closer to 30 goals. Obviously, a step up from last year.
That's going to drive Howie crazy. Grabowski to Grabner to Grabowski.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think Kuhlman, if he's not on the line with Grabowski, goes AWOL. I really do.
You know, I thought that might be the best thing we can get because then that helps with the logjam a little bit. Then it frees up a spot for someone else.
Exactly.
But Rich has Kuhlman, Grabowski, and Bailey, so we'll just let all the people on Twitter yell at him for that.
Wait, who does he have? What is he?
Kuhlman, Grabowski, and Bailey.
At RDNHL.
He has Bailey on the
George
second
Pace
line.
just blew a gasket. He's having an aneurysm right now.
But as much as I'll be the first person to argue that I don't think Michael Grabner is a legitimate top 6 forward, I think he fits with Grabowski and Kuhlman, so
Yes.
I think he can make it work.
All right, third line.
Third line, all right. Corey Conacher, Franz Nielsen, and then either Josh Bailey or Anders Lee. And I think it'll be Bailey to start.
Okay, so a little bit of everything. Keep going. Oh, this is good.
At Shane B NHL.
I think it'll be Bailey to start. I like Conacher a lot. I think Conacher has a lot of upside, and I think Conacher deserves a spot. Like me and you said, Mike, we played around with him on that first line.
Mm-hmm.
So to go for me, because I originally didn't have him in the lineup at all. I went from playing around him on the first line to not making the team, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Because if he has a shot at playing with Tavares and Okposo, there has to be a spot on him for this team. He's obviously not the same kind of player as Strome, meaning that they don't care if they keep him at center. Since he's not a center, he's fine on the wing. He is a winger. The reason I played around with him with Tavares and Okposo is because in Tampa he played with St. Louis and Stamkos and proved he can play with high-quality players.
Mm-hmm.
I think him and Nielsen would work well together. And I have a soft spot in my heart for Josh Bailey.
Don't we all?
At Shane B NHL.
But
You are ruthless.
I would prefer to see Anders Lee on that wing. I would prefer to see Conacher, Nielsen, and Lee. But I think to start, based on what we know about the Islanders staff, I think you're going to see Bailey in the lineup to start the season at least.
Yep.
So I went with Conacher, Nielsen, and Bailey.
I would go Nielsen, Conacher, Lee. The Islanders will probably go, like you said, Nielsen, Conacher, Bailey.
I went with Lee, Nielsen, and Bailey. Because Bailey, the reasoning behind Bailey, he can't go on the fourth line. He obviously doesn't crack the top 2, so he has to go there. Nielsen, prototypical third-line center. Lee, banger, gets to the front of the net, does everything you want out of almost an energy line guy, but he has, I think, a little more offensive skill than a typical fourth liner would get. So I think Lee, Nielsen, Bailey is where I landed.
I like Conacher just because of the fact if they do go Lee, Conacher, you know what you're getting with Bailey. At least with Conacher, there's the chance he could be the Conacher that was with Stamkos and St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
With Bailey, now, don't get me wrong, I really like Josh Bailey. Josh Bailey is high up there on my fan list, not on my skill player list, but I root for Josh Bailey. But I don't think he's ever going to be what the Islanders hoped he would be when they drafted him until we trade him. Because we'll trade Josh Bailey, and he will instantly score 50 goals. Like, instantly on the spot without thinking twice. So
I don't know really what to say to that. I don't really know how to respond to Josh Bailey, the idea of Josh Bailey scoring 50 goals. But
well, at least I don't have him on the second line. At least I have him on the third.
nobody
Now,
had him on the second line.
Rich's third line is Ryan Strome, Franz Nielsen, and Michael Grabner.
Strome, Nielsen, and Grabner.
So he has Strome. Is he the only one with Strome in the lineup? I think?
Unless either one of you guys have him on the fourth line. Rich is the only one with Strome.
To be honest,
Okay.
that sounds like
That's a really good line.
Yeah.
The only problem with that is that line means our second line is Kuhlman, Grabowski, and Bailey.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Which I'm, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I go there.
But
He loves Bailey, and I think I mean the offensive upside, like he has it in him, and we've seen it. It's just so frustrating when he doesn't show up for stretches, and that's what that's the risk
Yeah,
you're taking
I
when you're
don't think
playing
you,
him.
like you said, Mike. I don't think you can. I don't think at this point you can afford to give Josh Bailey second line minutes at this point.
Not
no,
now.
definitely
No,
not.
he has to play his way in.
Unless if you want to keep Strome, Nielsen, and Grabner, you could filter Conacher or Lee in with Kuhlman and Grabowski.
You could,
Mhm.
you could.
But I don't think Strome makes the team. So I still think we're looking at Grabner, Grabowski, Kuhlman, Conacher, Nielsen, and Bailey.
All right, fourth line is
Fourth line is
yeah,
Clutterbuck, Cizikas, and Matt Martin.
absolutely.
I think that is
Mm,
going to Cizikas and Clutterbuck bring some offensive upside to a fourth line,
Absolutely.
and Matt Martin is just Matt Martin. And whether he
And
belongs on the team or not, the fans love Matt Martin, and the Islanders love Matt Martin.
and Cal Clutterbuck will get his minutes elsewhere in terms of the penalty kill.
Absolutely. I would love to see him and Grabner on one penalty kill, and then Cizikas and Bailey, or Cizikas and Conacher on the other.
No, you got to
mm.
put. Well, wait, hold on. Would you say the Clutterbuck and Nielsen first?
No. Oh, yeah, I forgot
No,
about
no.
Franz. No, I said Clutterbuck and
Yeah,
Grabner.
you can't. Yeah.
Clutterbuck
No.
and Grabner, and then Cizikas and Franz.
You know who they've been in the preseason? It's been a lot. I've seen a lot of Nikolai Kuhlman on the penalty kill.
Really?
A lot.
I really like Grabner because his speed is terrifying. It makes defensemen think twice about going D to D.
I think Nielsen and Clutterbuck is your first two over the boards on a penalty kill, and
And then Grabner and someone else.
it's got to be Grabner, and it's got to be someone really responsible defensively. And if you look at advanced stats, we'll talk about advanced stats again. If you go to advanced stats, Josh Bailey did pretty well on the defensive side of the game last year. He wasn't horrible defensively. That's just
No, he was quietly effective as a defensive player, but
Correct.
people don't like to look at defense. They want goals, and that's the way it is.
You
You
can't
play
sit
play
back
NHL, and you want to score goals. So
You can't sit back and say that that's not a fact because it is. He was responsible defensively, and that's that.
give me 1 sec, guys. I gotta grab a charger.
No problem, buddy.
Now, I was gonna jump into the defensive pairing, so we'll give Mike a second before we do that. When it comes to Conacher, Andy,
Yep.
do you feel he A has earned a spot, B deserves it? Like, where do you see his offensive upside?
Corey Conacher, I think, has come into camp, and from what I've seen, worked as hard as anybody else has worked. He is extremely fast. I couldn't believe how fast he was. But this kid's come in, and he's working really, really hard to earn a spot. He is taking nothing for granted, and if you read my column over the summer after I spoke with Corey, you can see and understand why he's not taking anything for granted. This is a kid that battled so much just to make it where he is that he's not sitting on his laurels and resting on his laurels one bit. And I do think for a guy with that kind of upside, and for a guy, as you said, Shane, who's proven he could play with top players before in Tampa, I don't see why there's any reason there shouldn't be a spot on this team for Corey Conacher, even if it's as a spare forward. I really don't see there not being a spot for a guy that's that gifted. And he is gifted. Say what you want about how could Conacher make it over Strong, blah, blah, blah. Conacher could play. He could play, and he could skate. And the reality is the league has become more of a skating league now. It's become less of a look, there's still physicality. There's still going to be your bumper, your grinders and your big guys, but you can see the game slowly evolving away, right? You can see how much fighting is down. You can see the game slowly transitioning into a speed game, into an offensive game, and especially with all the rules against obstruction. So I definitely believe that there's a spot on this roster for Corey Conacher, in my opinion.
All right, well then let's look at the defense now that Mike's back. First pair, Hamonic DeHaan. I think that's unanimous, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Andy?
Easy.
And Rich said the same thing. We're all Hamonic DeHaan. I think Hamonic has some offensive upside that we saw kind of come out last year, but he is your number one defenseman. Travis Hamonic has developed into a phenomenal defenseman for the New York Islanders. Then pair two, Wisnowski, Hickey, because I liked them a lot together the little bit they played together last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where Rich differs. Rich in his email said Donovan and Hickey.
No.
As a matter of fact, Rich doesn't have Wisnowski in the top 7. He's not even the scratch in Rich's lineup.
I mean, look,
Unless Rich is banking on him not playing.
The game is now 3-3, by the way, with 16.
They scored again. Oh, the game's on NHL Network, by the way, in the New York market, if anybody is listening.
Oh, it did go on? It finally went on?
Yeah, get this. I think someone tweeted to the NHL Network, and they put it on in New York.
And I'm telling you, 46 is having a rough night.
Not good, man.
Well, good thing we have Halak and the Halak. I'm going to call him the Halakness Monster.
Go for it. Trademark
I
it.
think that's going to be his name. His name's going to be the Halakness Monster. But I have Wisniewski. I have Wisnowski and Hickey.
I think that's fair. The only change I'd make there is we all seen Wisnowski's getting old, and he went off with back spasms, and the concussion's always a concern. But if he's healthy, that has to be the second pair.
And then third pair, Reinhart. And now I'm the opposite of you, Mike. I have Reinhart and Brennan, with Donovan being 7.
Okay.
I went back and forth on that.
I originally had Brian Straight there when I was first doing this. For one reason and one reason only. If our third pairing is Reinhart and Donovan or Reinhart and Brennan, their combined experience is like 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
6 minutes.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, so Brian Straight being there, although he may not be a better option than Brennan or Donovan, he has the experience to help Reinhart develop into an NHL defenseman.
Right. I think people would argue that and say, well, yeah, Straight has experience, but he's not good. You know what you're getting with him, and that's a solid, I guess, third pair guy. Maybe a 7th D-man, but they would advocate having a rookie or an AHLer in that spot, like Brennan, like Reinhart, because we don't necessarily know what they have, and what if they turn out to be better? Why bury those guys? And so, playing devil's advocate a little bit there. But I had Straight there for a little bit, and then I kind of tossed him out for the same reason you did, Shane.
I like Brennan a lot. I think Brennan will play, and I think Donovan will be the 7.
Yes.
Rich has Straight and Reinhart, with Karkner being the 7.
No, I think Matty gets the. I seriously think that Karkner gets the
Finley
Bridgeport
treatment.
I pretty much have the same as you guys. I have Reinhart, and then I have a battle for that spot next to Reinhart between. I think at this stage, seeing what I've seen tonight, not knowing, but kind of anticipating how Cappy thinks from being around him for 2 years, I could see that depth chart next to Reinhart being in this order: Straight, Brennan, Donovan at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same depth chart the 3 of us have, is in different orders, the 3 of them.
Yes. So I probably missed this, but who'd you guys carry for the forward lines? Who are your 13 and 14?
And by the way, can I just mention this before we move on? People need to really cool it with the tweets regarding the blown 2-goal lead and the turnovers. It's a pre-season.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. It's a pre-season game against the Bruins. Pretty much starting.
They're A team.
So our defense tonight was no Dahan, no Hamonic, no Wisnowski. So it's just relax.
Hey man, hockey's back. Hockey's back, right?
Everyone needs to relax. Have a drink. Go take a bath. Put some Epsom salt in there or something, or maybe light a candle. Just relax. It's insane. It's pre-season, guys.
Mike, to answer your question, I only have a 13. I don't have a 14.
You don't carry 14?
My 13's Colin McDonald.
Okay. Yeah, I have McDonald too.
I don't have a 14 because my next 2 forwards who aren't in my lineup, if they go with Bailey, my 2 forwards are Lee and Strome. And if either of them are scratches and not playing in Bridgeport, I think that's a mistake.
That makes sense.
So McDonald is my 13, no 14 as of right now, and then my 7th defenseman would be either Straight, Brennan, or Donovan, whoever doesn't play with Reinhart.
Okay.
Or you even carry, instead of doing 15 forwards and 7 defensemen, you can go 13 and 8.
Yep.
And
I
you
think
can
they
carry
might do
Brennan.
that. Yeah.
You can carry Donovan and Straight if Brennan plays, or carry Brennan and Straight if Donovan. I think especially to start, not knowing, because it's the same kind of situation we had last year where we didn't know how Hammer was going to be coming in the first couple of weeks. So they kept Reinhardt, not knowing what Viz and Dahan are going to be like. I think you see them carry 8 defensemen. Because you don't know where Dahan's going to be on the 10th, and you don't know where Viz is going to be on the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Which scares the crap out of me.
You got to plan for the worst case, right?
I'm terrified of Dahan if it's his shoulder. Like, he finally got his shot last year. He earned it. He played phenomenal. I think he is one of the smartest defensemen we've seen on this team. He makes possibly the best first outlet pass that I've seen an Islander make in a long time. So if we lose him to the shoulder again, that would be crushing to the blue line.
No
But Andy would be happy because I think that would open the door for Donovan.
No, I would not. Stop. Don't say that. I would, look, at the end of the day, I said this to someone today as we were talking about Ryan Strome. I really don't give a flying rat's who plays.
As long as they
All
win.
I care about is W's and L's, wins and losses. That's it. I don't care who's in the lineup as long as the team wins. That's the bottom line. So,
Go team.
I am not an NHL coach. I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So I'm going to leave those decisions up to the men who make tons and tons, way more money than I do, to make them. And if the team wins, it doesn't matter who's playing. Do I like Matt Donovan? Yes. Is he? He's. I want to see him succeed, but if he doesn't, that's up to the coaching staff, not me. So.
It's safe to say that none of the three of us think Pulak has a shot right out of camp this year.
No, absolutely not.
Good. I just wanted to make sure.
Broad defensively, in my opinion.
Just wanted to make sure.
I
am thrilled. I am thrilled, though, absolutely thrilled to not have again another year of no Strite and no McDonald. Like it makes me so happy to make fun of my Flyer fan friends at work.
It's so easy now.
That they have to deal with the two of them, and we no longer have to deal with either of them. Because Mark Strite should be a forward. He was a phenomenal offensive defenseman, and is god-awful defensive. Like, I mean, almost pathetic. I could probably be a better defenseman in the NHL than Mark Strite.
I hope they give you a call and they offer you an ATO.
Can you imagine how awesome that? There would have to be like an action movie or a sport movie montage of me hitting the gym for like 6 months before I go to that tryout. All right, a couple more things to hit on, guys, before we get out of here. We have one: the sale of the New York Islanders was officially approved by the NHL Board of Governors. So it is official. Everyone can, for lack of a better word, I'll cater to Isles Twitter here, and I'll say we could all celebrate that the Islanders have officially been kind of sold, because they're not majority owners for 2 years. But the sale has happened and is in the process of becoming majority owners, so there is that. Now, the thing that I sent an email out that I wanted to talk about, they want to put GoPros on players during the game for point-of-view cameras on the broadcasts. How do we feel about that? Mike, go.
I absolutely love this idea. I watched, I think it was the Carolina affiliate, the Checkers, maybe. They did it for the refs. There were 4 refs that wore GoPros in an AHL game. I think it was last year. And it was like a 6 or 7 minute video, and it was awesome because you got to see what they tell the players, what the players tell them when they're being escorted to the box. You get to see what a guy on the ice sees when we're always used to seeing it from the side, the overhead, elevated view. Why didn't he make that pass? He had so much room. But when you're down on the ice and you're in it, it's so much different. And you guys know, you played. I think to show that to the fans real time, especially, it's probably not going to work for a little while. But to have that point of view, I think would open up so much more about what we know about the game and how we consume it. I mean, we're going towards player tracking technology now, like SportView and cameras and the whole advanced stats movement. That's kind of off to the side, but this is kind of in that vein, in that a different camera angle is great. Like, I love NFL now when you get to see the behind the quarterback view and you get to look up the field, and I think this is along those lines. I think that's what people want to see.
Andy, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's a novelty. I think the league needs more novelties in it. I think that, we don't want the NHL turning into the no fun league, as I like to call the NFL. I think I can call the NFL a lot worse things than that at this point in time, but I'll leave that alone. I won't touch that. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great to give the fans that perspective. I think it's great for fans to kind of go into the officials' world. I think it's easy to get on these officials every night when they don't make a call that maybe you think they should have, or calls don't go the home team's way. But I think at the end of the day, it's an almost impossible job. I know I've done it a couple times, and I hope I never do it again. So let's just put it that way. It is really not as easy as you think it might be. So I think that allowing fans to kind of get a peek into what they go through would certainly offer another interesting perspective on the game. As I said pre-show, on the players though, man, the game moves so fast. I'm not really sure what they can actually capture of true worth putting it on a player. A goalie might make more sense to me than putting it on an actual player who's skating around at 30 miles an hour.
I think you'd have
sticks.
I think you'd have to find a better place on a player than the helmet.
Yep.
You'd have to find a place because if you watch an NHL game, and people who have played hockey know, your head is all over the place. Your head is never looking your head is looking everywhere because you need to see everything on the ice to know what you're doing next. So the head.
Not only that, I don't want to see a guy get a concussion. I don't want to see a helmet pop off and my footage is a helmet spinning around, the ice a million times while the play's up the other end.
I would love to see a GoPro point of view fight.
That'd be interesting.
Just watch somebody eat a punch.
You can't take their helmets off. That would be interesting.
But I don't think the helmet is the place to put it. If you want to put it on a player, you need to find a different place to put it, which becomes difficult. I love it on the ref. I think on the ref is fantastic. I think that's a great idea.
I agree, and I think a goaltender is a good idea.
I think the goaltender is a good idea too. I hadn't thought of it like that. I think that's perfect. Sometimes
kind of work with that in the net camera that they tried having. Right. If you put that thing on a goalie, that would be really awesome.
It's like the behind the net camera they have on the top of the boards. Sometimes when they're under the PK, they just go from that angle, and you can see the umbrella and everything set up. I think that would be perfect if they put it on a goalie, at least to start.
Which I think, by the way, should be the standard power play camera.
Yes.
That needs to be the standard broadcast camera.
Absolutely.
That is my favorite camera of all time.
And on a power play, because you could see everything. You could see how well they really do move the puck.
Awesome.
I do agree that it's a novelty, and I think it's a novelty the NHL can use. I think it's a good way to bring fans who have never played the game. I think a GoPro on a player, as much as it may be crazy, or even on a ref or on the goalie, I think would bring a whole new appreciation to the game for fans who have never played. Because you'd see firsthand what it takes to make those split-second decisions.
Yep. Agreed.
And they can use GoPros on refs to determine the quality of ref, and they can develop a grading system to make sure only good refs either A, stay in the league, B, the ones who are making questionable calls be dealt with, and C, you would use the footage to pick your roster of playoff refs.
Are you applying for that position? Because a lot of interesting ideas have gotten hired by NHL clubs this year. So,
you know what? I may start sending the old resume out.
That's why I'm in the big boy chair.
But they're gonna have to hire someone really skilled in muting cameras, because if you put a GoPro on players and you switch to that camera, bet your ass you're gonna want to mute it.
You're in trouble.
You don't want that audio going over the air.
Agreed.
That's gonna cause you some fines. Oh, man. All right. I think that about does it.
Yeah, it was great to get back in the saddle, man. It was good.
God, it felt good. It felt so good being back.
Next week we'll start talking about some actual games, and we'll have some real lineup changes to discuss, and we'll get you prepared for Friday night's opener in Carolina.
Now, we're going to go on Wednesdays, right? From here on out?
You're the director. You tell us.
Wednesdays are my best day.
Yeah, I think tomorrow is only out because we have our Insight ESPN Hockey Fantasy Draft.
Which I can't wait for. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
But yeah, so every Wednesday night, roughly around 8 o'clock, if there is an Islander game on a Wednesday night, we will tweet out what we're going to do, whether we're going to do a different day or a different time or just go. Whatever we're going to do, we will tweet out and let you guys know. But bank on Wednesdays at approximately 8 o'clock for the Dump and Chase podcast. I'm really, really, really happy that we did this today. I miss doing it. So, Andy Graziano, is there anything you would like to plug before we get out of here?
You know, again, I say it every week, and I don't think it gets any less important. You know, thank you to all the readers, listeners. It's been, we're absolutely appreciative and humbled by all the support, especially from our T-shirt sale, which, if you didn't get one, you can still grab one at teespring.com/Isles Insight. We have a new partnership this year with USA Today Digital Sports Properties. This has been absolutely great for the site, and we couldn't have done it without you, so thanks for your support.
Michael Wilhoff, is there anything you would like to plug?
Not really. I guess just the Twitter handle at Isles Insight. We are now, and let me check. We're now up over 1,350 followers, which is, you know, we can't thank you enough for all the support, for the listens, for the reads, all the interaction. We really appreciate it, guys. So stick with us. We'll get back into a regular schedule, and we appreciate the support.
And I am Shane Blackburn. Make sure you guys check out IslandersInsight.com, the DumpandChasePodcast.com. Follow us all on Twitter. Tune in every Wednesday. Read all of our stuff, because if I say so myself, it's pretty fantastic. Buy our shirts, because they're awesome. I'm going to go do that right now as soon as we hang up. I'm going to watch the Islanders go into overtime, and then I'm going to buy my Islanders Insight shirt. I'm going to get NHL 15 on PS4 relatively soon. So, if you want to play with me, because I need people to play with.
I got it. And by the way, FIFA 15 for PS4 is fantastic.
Is it better than NHL 15? Because I'm trying to decide between which one to get.
The graphics are absolutely insane. I mean, they have player models down to the bench guys. It's
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for listening. Make sure you tune in next week. And until next time, since they are playing games, let's go Islanders.
two thumbs up.
Good to be back, boys.
It's
Nice
good
work,
to be
Shane.
back.
Now
All right, I'm
gonna-
gonna stop the broadcast. Hold on. Let's go. Hold on. Let's go private.
You're going to edit this and submit it as a podcast tomorrow, right?
Da.
Da.
Okay, good. Make sure
Thank you guys for watching. We are gonna stop the broadcast and go into a private chat.
Make sure you get it on iTunes, too.
Nope.